Here.
So we do have a forum. To start with, I know we have little forms to fill out if you wanted to speak. We did run out of the forms, so we're just gonna ask, when you come up to speak, you can just fill out your name and address on the yellow papers that are in front. Next, we want to have an adoption of our minutes from our prior meeting. We had a
Microphone closer, please.
we're gonna adopt a, can you hear it now? Is that any better? Still can you hear?
I wanted to try this one for now.
Is that better? Alright, we'll try this again. So to start with, we're gonna have the approval of minutes from the November 22nd meeting of 2022. That was our last meeting prior to a month ago. Those minutes, the only two board members that are here that were on at that meeting for approval would be Ron and Herschel, so we have approval for those meetings from November 22nd.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes. I think.
Okay. Seconded.
Herschel,
Yes?
Ron,
Yes.
Cam,
Yes.
Jeff,
I can't vote if no one there. Abstain.
yes.
And then we have the meetings from last September, or not last September, just this past September. The meeting, minutes from that meeting, and all were there, so approval for, a motion for the approval of those minutes.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes from September meeting.
Second. Roll call.
Jeff,
Yes.
Cam,
Yes.
Herschel,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Cam,
Yes.
Okay. On old business, Mr. Russell Cate, the attorney representing the four demonstrators, had asked for a continuance due to his being on vacation, couldn't be able to represent his clients. I do know he's got someone here in his place, so I think we will, unless someone objects, we'll continue with tonight's meeting and not have a continuation. If a motion from someone to have the meeting go ahead.
There should be a vote on the motion,
Right.
to continue the entire board, so a motion either deny or approve.
Right, so need a motion to either deny or approve the continuation.
I make a motion, we go ahead with the meeting, since, the attorney has a representative here. I second it.
Seconded by Ron. Roll call.
Jeff,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Herschel,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Cam,
Yes.
We will continue with our meeting. So this is for the BZA application 2023-01, which continued from our September 18th meeting. The subject is review of the special use application to approve a salvage yard spatial use in the general industrial zoning district. Location is 199 South State Road 13, 0 South State Road 13. The petitioner is LKQ Midwest Incorporated. The property owners are Carolyn Wilson and the Wilson Land Trust, Eric Dick Wilson. My notes here. So we'll need a motion to open the hearing. Reopen the hearing for this.
I make a motion to reopen the hearing on application BZA 2023-01.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Jeff,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Herschel,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Cam,
start with, I'll ask Oksana for any updates to the staff report.
So between the previous meeting and this meeting, I sent an exhibit, a memo to the board with some additional details. They were mostly responses to the questions that were either raised at the previous public hearing meeting and they're planning related. Some of the things were mentioned in the remonstrance letters. There was an 150-60 page document. And so some of those things I wanted to go over because they are planning related, just briefly. Some things were mentioned to be missing from the submittal itself online, the file that was posted online. A couple of the documents were just linked inside, so it wasn't obvious that the warranty deeds were already submitted, and so I just added them this time separately. The CO letter was already submitted at the rezone application, so I just forgot to add it to this packet, and so I added it as well. Based on some additional analysis and some of the things that public talked about, I added a couple of additional conditions to the staff report. So the staff report itself was changed only, the content was changed mostly about the conditions. Since my analysis is based on the applicant's commitment to store only car carcasses outside, that's, you know, where our environmental concerns usually come from, is what is stored outside. I added it as an explicit condition to the approval that only vehicle carcasses would be stored in the yard.
Can you repeat that? Only what kind of carcasses?
The only item type to be stored in the outside storage yard shall be vehicle carcasses.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Then the other condition was just rephrased, the vehicle carcasses stored in the outside storage yard shall be stored at or below the height of 4 feet. So that's something that the applicant already said that they would be doing anyway. We're just putting it as a condition for sure, because I know that sometimes people have concerns about how things would look visually. So the combination of an 8-foot yard, already landscape standards that we already have in place anyway, plus the reduced storage height of items in the yard would make it so that the items would not be visible from the road. People talked about the possibility of the light glare, and when I looked at the regulations that Lapel has, it has regulations for the light fixtures of how they should be directing the light and how to measure it, but I didn't see an explicit condition about lighting in the storage yard. And so I proposed an additional condition of what the applicant would submit to show that the way that they are planning to use the lights in the yard the glare basically would finish at the property line. And so the condition is worded in the following way: where exterior lighting is provided, lighting levels for all areas shall be designed and located so that the illumination measured in foot candles along the property lines shall be at or below 1 foot candle. The applicant shall submit a lighting plan during the development plan or improvement location permit stage, showing a photometric layout, indicating all photometric calculations, including foot candle levels on a regular grid across the site, and extending beyond the lot at the aiming direction of the light fixtures. That's one of the types of documents that some jurisdictions require. It's not a typical requirement, but this is the kind of requirement that allows the building inspector, the planner, to review the lighting plan before things are even built, as well as then to go out on site and actually measure that the lighting was installed properly according to this plan. There was mentioning of the traffic numbers. People weren't sure that the traffic was calculated properly, and so my general comment to this is that traffic calculations are done at the permitting stage. The driveway cut here will be onto the state road, so the applicant will have to submit their driveway permit, any road improvement permit application to the Indiana Department of Transportation that has the jurisdiction over the state road. That's the time when the applicant submits traffic analysis, and NDOT has standards of what they request, how they request the road to be improved according to the traffic analysis. So that's where traffic analysis comes in terms of analyzing the actual numbers of the traffic. Somewhere in the remonstrators' letters, there was a concern about the possible handling of fire. They weren't sure that the existing fire hydrants are close enough to the property. Lapel's ordinance allows installation of the dry fire hydrant, so the site itself would have its own fire hydrant, and the applicant has to show the location and the right amount of the water availability to handle fires. That's just part, again, of a requirement that Lapel's zoning ordinance already has, and it would be required at the permitting stage. Light pollution, I talked about it. Noise, that's the one where we have some regulations, or we have just a general statement in the Lapel UDO that there shouldn't be any noises. Lapel's town code has some regulations about noise provisions. Most towns and cities typically have noise regulations in their town codes. I kind of provided analysis to the board about if they wanted to include an additional requirement that is a little bit more specific. I give examples from Indianapolis, Fishers, and Noblesville zoning ordinance of how they phrase it. There are no really, they're not consistent among those jurisdictions, but there are general limitations on the hours of operation, limit on noise creation to be measured at decibel level, at a property line, sometimes at a distance from the property line. There are sometimes exemptions from certain kind of voluntary activities. I provide the levels that are generally known to be, either safe or kind of going a little over the safe level. And then I propose sort of the phrasing for the possible condition. So that's something for the board to consider. Also, between now and then, when I presented this, when this was, I guess, presented to, the BZA, the public and the petitioner said that most of their activities are done in a way where they can easily meet a standard on a property line, even when the crashing happens in the middle of the lot. They can talk about the decibel level of what is possible there. So this is just kind of general information of the noise. Fence material. So for the junkyard, it says that there should be a fence around the yard that is 100% opaque, wood, stone, or masonry. There are also general fence regulations in the general industrial district that allow many kinds of fence materials. And then also Lapel's UDO for fences and walls says that in instances when special use in the general industrial district require fence and standards that are different than those in this section for reason of public health, safety, and welfare, the Plan Commission of Town Council may modify the requirements of this section to accommodate the needs for the development. So, because there is this variety of fence materials, the staff thought that the materials was more to show examples of what an opaque material is. If the board has a different interpretation of the what the fence material should be, the board can make the determination that is different from staff. Water quality, that's the biggest one that people bring up in relation to this submittal. So there are kind of a couple of layers here. The first one is the general staff's, I guess, position was that because IDEM provides those regulations, the environmental ones, and they're the one to regulate most of them, a lot of requirements would be met at the permitting stage when the applicant applies for the permits with IDEM. The second part is, people typically just mention an aquifer, but Madison County has aquifer under every inch of its land. And so when we say that we want to restrict a use because it's over an aquifer, well, there is aquifer everywhere. It's under any use that already exists. And so The next question is there anything special about where the site is located? One thing to check typically is it in the wellhead protection area? Wellhead protection area is an area established by the public water suppliers, so we are talking about the suppliers that get the water for the public, right? Citizens is one of the public water supplier that extracts water nearby. Town of Lapel is another one. Citizens has a wellhead protection area around their wells, Town of Lapel doesn't. When we look at the Indiana Department of Environmental Management tool, and we click pretty much on every parcel of the project site, it says that it's not located in the wellhead protection area. And citizens showed us the map that they have of the wellhead protection area. I'll just show what it looks like. It's also, I think, good general education. Basically, the point of the wellhead protection area is for the public utility to see where contamination could come from if it travels for 1 year or 5 years. And so what you see on the map here is that you have 3 blue citizens wells. The black one is the location of the Town of Lapel well. All of this is located north of State Road 38, so the subject site is not really even in the picture on this map.
Yes, it is.
It is not. The blue area shows a 1-year travel area. The 5-year area is in green. So as you can see, when you have the bigger distance, that's pretty much where the contamination travels faster. Finally, if we look at the aquifer maps themselves, so the site is located, we have a couple of maps that both demonstrators and staff used previously. So one map is the bedrock, and it's located here in yellow. This map of aquifer system for the bedrock shows you kind of what bedrock system you have, whether wells produce enough water, and it has a comment about the susceptibility of the aquifer to pollution. And for this yellow area, it says the aquifer system in generally is not very susceptible to surface contamination due to thick clay deposits over most of the county. However, there are localized areas, especially near the White River, where the bedrock surface is shallow. These areas, therefore, are at moderate to high risk to contamination. So this is not a White River area, so we have one comment here that is just says that the bedrock is not very susceptible to surface contamination. Then the layer above bedrock is the unconsolidated aquifer. This is where you'll have a lot of colors. So the project site is located here in green. And for the green, well, it worked on me here. Click on something here. And the project site has the green one. It's called the Bluffton-Newcastle-Tipton-Till Aquifer System. When it talks about the susceptibility to contamination, it says this subsystem is generally not very susceptible to surface contamination because infill sand and gravel units are overlain by thick till deposits. So the final one, these maps also kind of give you a general understanding of how the water would flow in these two systems. And basically, the general flow of water in this area where the subject site is going to be east to west and north to south. So because of that, the direction kind of contamination flow, even if for some reason it was, flowing, which, it shouldn't be, but if it was, it would be going from LPQ side south, west, north, not north, where the public water wells are located. So that's kind of the findings that staff found. The staff talked to Item several times. Item's typical position on this is they'll just need to apply for their permits if the use was allowed, you know, and we will see if it will permit this operation the way it is. And they tell you about the kinds of permits that are required. So I think that is, those are my main points from the exhibit. Also, between now and the time that I submitted information to the board, there was one more letter that was added to the remonstrance packet. And also between my contact with BZA and today, there was another letter with the name and the address submitted. So that was added to, again, Exhibit A. It's gonna be the last page of the printed documents from the remonstrators. So that was added as well. And finally, the applicant sent me some information, but again, because they sent it after the 5-day deadline, I just added it to your packet today, and the applicant can go over the information in the packet. Are there any questions to the staff from the board at this point?
Questions from the board? Roxanne? Okay. All right, we will next ask for the representative from LKQ to make any presentation of any changes to their petition or their evidence. We have a representative here for LKQ.
It's gonna be the same.
Yep, I like it.
Test.
Good evening, board members, members of the community. My name is Joe Calderon, attorney with offices at 11 South Meridian, Indianapolis. I was hired by LKQ shortly following the September meeting just to kind of help guide them through the process. We certainly respect the special use requirements, and after reading the minutes from the September hearing, what we have done in an effort to bring you to a conclusion this evening, we've supplemented our submittals to the town and to your planning staff, and with a focus on really hitting the 4 criteria. Because as you've heard, when a special use is required under your ordinance, the use is thought of as permitted once those 4 criteria are established. And that's what we intend to show you tonight. We do want to start by just kind of giving you a view of what this use will actually look like. And at the end of our presentation, we hope that you'll agree that when you're looking at the site from the street, that you'll be seeing an industrial building with a fenced yard, outside storage not exceeding the height of the fence. Just as many permitted uses would be allowed in the IG district or even in the light industrial district that would not have to go through the special use process. So if Chris can show you all a quick, I think it's less than a 2-minute video, this might help show you exactly what you can expect from an operational standpoint, including going inside.
For sound, that's all I have.
I think the visuals.
Okay, no sound, I apologize.
What you'll notice is the workers are not having to wear protective gear. You're seeing a very methodical process. Here's a car that's being delivered, you're seeing a warehouse site. Yes, this is a yard, but remember, there will be nothing in terms of fluids, tires, etc., stored in the yard. It's a very high-tech industry. You know, years ago when I started in this business, we used to think of these types of operations as auto graveyards. And really what's changed in the last 30-some years is that they're really recycling facilities. And that's something I think Chris showed you last month, the percentage and the volume of recyclable parts. This is where body shops, auto parts stores come to find parts. This is a mayor of a town in Arizona that is talking about the recycling nature and welcoming LKQ in to its community. You can see the shop floor is very clean. This is how things get organized inside. This is kind of what you'll see, which would be very similar to any permitted industrial building on this particular facility. I'm going to have Jim Nelson say just a couple of words regarding the operations. He's involved in many sites across the country, many communities, smaller, larger, as you weigh in your decision this evening.
Thanks, Joe. Oksana, thank you for your report. Truly appreciate that. BZA board, we appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you today and allow us to make hopefully a final presentation for your vote. As Joe said, we will take as long as everybody wants to prove up that we meet the 4 criteria. We know we do. We just want to make sure that the facts are out there, the facts are presented. In conjecture, information that's not true, we just need to discuss that and say why. That's one thing. I wanted to start off with sort of flying up today. First of all, Chris and I have worked with LKQ for about 15 years. We've developed 7 of these projects. This will be our 7th project. They're called a prototype facility for a reason. There's no other LKQ product except for those 6 that are currently existing around the country that's going to look like this. So any comparisons to this facility should be one of those 6. So I would say that's kind of a baseline for establishment. So on my way up today, I've been married for a long time. My wife sends a text, and I get it when I get off the plane. It says, the attorneys will know. Comity. C-O-M-I-T-Y. I have no idea. I'm not that smart, but I look up the definition, and it says courtesy and considerate behavior towards others. I'm thinking, wait, she knows me. I'm pretty courteous, pretty nice. And then I realized when I came in here tonight, it's supposed to be for you all, I think is what it's going to be. So going forward in our presentation here, in all seriousness, we've been here between Chris and I and Randy Smith with LKQ over the last 8-9 months, several presentations. I know we've met some of the folks on the other side of the aisle, if you will, and we've shook hands and said, you know, I know I've given my card out and said, there's not one thing that we're going to do here that we're not showing or telling you that we're going to do. If you do, you have a cell phone number for me, you call me and we'll change it. It'll be right. So just to kind of clear and make sure we're all on the same page, everyone knows where this property is located, correct? Everybody knows what's around it, correct? Is the property zoned general industrial?
It is now.
It is. So if we prove the 4 criteria are met, the BZA approves the use, correct? Okay. Just, I want to make sure, because that's obviously where we're headed, whether we, you know, hopefully we can, like I say, answer every single question. I have nowhere to go till 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. We'll stay here as long as you guys want. I don't know if these guys do, but we will to answer any questions you got. So just a few things again, throw out. From day one, we've talked about how we handle our stormwater runoff on site with the liners and the clay protection. we've got a study in a package from a geological group that shows that they don't want me to say this, but there's virtually no effect to the aquifer from our property. Everything is screened, you guys know that. There's no combustibles, all the drivetrains, all the fluids, as you know, and are part of the program are removed. Before anything goes in the yard, the carcasses go in the yard, I call them chassis. We have, on the sprinkler system, I would just add to Oksana's point, we actually have a system called an ESFR system. And it stands for Early Suppression Fast Response. So it's a sprinkler system that we have that goes above and beyond what would probably be called in your building criteria. So continuing in this vein of presenting the facts, the only correction I'd make to Oksana's point was the package that was put out by what is that name? Remonstrators. Again, I'm not that smart. That's 180 pages. And the first time I read it, I'm not going to tell you what I thought. I was upset. But the more I read it, I said, okay, let's address that here. This is the perfect environment for that, and address exactly what the facts are and what they aren't, right? So in that report, there's something that talks about dirty recycling. That's on page 91. Never heard of that? Still not sure what that is. I read that 5 times. It pertains to some urban development, how it affects property values if you're next to a junkyard. So I guess that's dirty recycling, but I don't know, that's not what this is. Secondly, there's some photographs in that package. To be specific, pages 132 through 135. Those are showing cars that have engines, transmissions, obviously fluids, tires, everything that we say we're not going to do. So how can, certainly somebody's not trying to portray that that's what we're going to be, right? Because we're not. To that point, when we came to this community and we were directed by economic development folks and whatnot, the property is an industrial property, right? Everybody knows what's around us. There's no offense to our neighbors, haven't met them yet. I'm sure we will if we have the opportunity. There's a batch plant, concrete batch plant. There's an auction yard that has, heavy equipment and automobiles that are on grass, not even on a fabric filter in the yard. I mean, so there's some established use already out there, right? So to portray us as something that we're not is not fair in our opinion. What we've said all along, you don't have a classification in your town, and it's fine. I've done this for 30 years, and half the time there is not a classification for what we do. But when there is, it says dismantling or recycling. We are not a junkyard, and we're not a scrapyard. You folks have all seen Nuco Metals. Again, no offense to Nuco Metals. That's a metal scrapyard, right?
Not in our town,
But I'm just saying that that's what a scrapyard looks like.
but it's not in our town.
I get it. That's what a scrapyard looks like. That's not what this is. This is an industrial building with an auto parts dismantling and distribution component. That's it. That's it. It literally, it's not a junkyard. The only reason why we're here talking about a junkyard is because it's the classification that the township has. We can open up for questions. Joe, you want to say anything?
I'll just say a couple of words. And thanks, Jim. We tendered a report from Apex that is a number of pages long. The conclusions are important for this board to consider. And that has to do with the situation with wells, with the aquifer, with stormwater. Keep in mind that the drinking water supply for the town is north of this property. The water flow goes south and west. So what we're doing is not sending water towards those sources. We have a sophisticated system to capture all of the stormwater. We have internal controls to manage that. We have to meet all the county drainage ordinances, all the Clean Water Act requirements with respect to stormwater. All of those things are very important. Valid concerns, absolutely. And we put in the extra effort to have an expert, not a paid voice like me or the developer, but a third party provide your staff with evidence that there is nominal risk. Probably less risk than uses that are permitted under IG. Let's just look at a couple. Light and heavy industrial assembly and distribution, light and heavy industrial processing, printing, publishing, even agriculture. There are all sorts of permitted uses that would not have to come to this board. They're going to be dealing with things that could, if they don't follow the regulations, create issues that we're wrestling with tonight. We're all concerned about making sure that what we're gonna do, and the most important finding, frankly, is that what this operation will not do is be injurious to the public health, safety, and welfare. So a lot of that in the minutes. That's why we went to a third person, not speculation, not attorney's opinions, but a third-party expert with significant experience to conclude that there is a nominal risk to public health, safety, and welfare from a water perspective. Additionally, you heard last time, all this processing takes place indoors. All of the outside storage will be below the fence line. It meets your ordinance requirements in that regard. You've taken steps to mitigate. There are conditions that the planning staff has put in terms of lighting. We'll meet those. All of those things are designed to make sure that we can meet your performance standards, which is part of the findings that we have tendered, which interestingly match almost word for word your staff's recommendation. They are the dispassionate expert managing your ordinance, interpreting your ordinance, and making recommendations to you. So we find it comforting to know that what we've done to submit our information to your planning staff matches their conclusions. We know that we're gonna be looked upon as, oh, we're just the company, we're just the development. That's fine. But when your staff takes our evidence and does its own research and concludes that we do meet those 4 criteria, albeit subject to conditions, we take great comfort in that. There were a couple of questions that were mentioned in the minutes. I think there was economic impact that maybe we needed to come back. This is a $29 million investment, 70 direct jobs, $40,000 a year average per job, significant property taxes. All of these things are direct benefits to this community because not only will people be employed by this site, it also creates spinoff. And the Madison County Economic Development Corp concluded that there would be additional jobs and salary spinoff property tax. You can see that up on the screen right now. So we're very proud of what we're bringing to this community. Again, the site zoned general industrial. It's comp planned for industrial use. And most importantly, with our plan of operation, with the building that we're building, proposing on this site, with the opaque fence, it's gonna look just like, frankly, a light industrial building with no outside storage shown. So with that, I think, we'd like to be able to answer any lingering questions the board may have. If there's anything that I missed. Oh, there really are, beyond us, people that live in this community, that own the property, and I think they'd like to share a little bit about their thoughts on why they're selling and why they're selling to LKQ.
I have a question first.
Absolutely.
You said that the aquifer runs from the town south, but I'm under the impression that that's where we get a lot of our water.
The public water supply well is north. The aquifer pretty much covers every piece of property in this county. The thing about the conclusion of the Apex report is that the water supply well is to the north. It's dug, it's protected, and our water does not travel up to the public water supply well. That we would be discharging to the south and to the west. Our runoff will be treated in our pond and has to meet Clean Water Act requirements before it ever leaves the site. The groundwater, which is way below the surface, 80 to 150 feet, is protected by the soil type. We've taken all the additional measures, safety measures, to assure that there is virtually no risk that there would be any contamination going into that groundwater in that aquifer system.
So you're under the impression that the aquifer that's out there, that town of Lapel does not get any water from that?
It does, but the water runs a certain way. So the well is dug well to the north. The report says how many feet or how many half-mile increments. And that well is protected. So our water, the groundwater underneath that well rolls to the south and the west. We don't go that way with it. Plus, keep in mind, with any type of business like this, there are a myriad of other regulations that apply that go beyond the town of Lapel's jurisdiction, which is good. We have to answer to the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, the county, the state, the feds. All of those have oversight over the same issues that we're all wrestling with tonight. And they're fair issues. I've done this a long time in the community that's public area. People have a right to be worried, to ask questions. It's our job to answer those questions, to find the right experts, and to prove to you that we believe that we can operate the site safely with no risk to the community and in a manner that satisfies those criteria. Anything else?
Yeah. So the aquifer out there, according to the DNR report, it says, the system is generally not very susceptible to surface contamination due to thick clay deposits. Have you actually done soil tests out there, drilling and verified that it is a thick clay deposit?
We have. Chris, do you want to answer that, because he's been a little closer to that than I have?
So we did a geotechnical report, when we went under contract, so I can provide the results of that, but yes, we provided that report to Apex when they provided, in their research, and she confirmed that the geotechnical report has the same findings that you see there.
In fact, the report goes into details about where you might find some outcroppings of softer soils than the clay, and it's not anywhere close to this location.
If the Wilsons would want to make a statement, co-petition.
Yeah, thank you.
I have cataract surgery and I can't see and move at the same time. Most of you know, if you don't know, I'm Angie Howell. I'm Carolyn Wilson's daughter, along with my siblings here. The Wilsons have farmed the ground where LKQ is requesting to build for over 100 years. Farm ground was passed down from our great-grandfather to our grandfather, and then to our dad, who farmed the ground along with my brother up until our dad's passing. My brother continued farming for a couple of years until his recent retirement. I'm sure any farmer will tell you that it's a very sad day when there is not another family member waiting in the next generation to continue the farming legacy that has been in place for years. Unfortunately, that is where Wilson Farms finds itself now. We are currently cash running the ground. What we have found out is that with its location near Interstate 69, the farmland has increased in value, and we have come to the realization that the acres remaining farmland is not likely. While the ground has never been for sale, our mother has received offers. She already has been approached and has sold 18 acres to the south of the proposed LKQ site close to 3 years ago. At that time, there was a proposed baseball complex which would host tournaments and include 4 to 5 baseball fields and an indoor facility where batting and pitching practice could take place. Since this sale, 2 years of crops has been planted. We do not know why the facility has not been started, but are hopeful that it still becomes a reality. The main reason our mother sold was that it would benefit the kids of Lapel, as well as a tournament bringing people to our town. She liked the idea that the fields would be there for the community to use. Several months ago, our mother and cousin came to an agreement with LKQ. Since that time, we cannot tell you how professional Chris Farrar has been in walking us through all the next steps protocol that has to be followed in large proposals such as this. He has done everything he said he would do and on the timeline that he said he would do it. He has been a breath of fresh air to work with through this process, and we have appreciated his professionalism. His work ethic alone has spoken volumes to us regarding the proposed facility. We all should be and are concerned with the water. The farmland that sits on the aquifer has been treated with herbicides and pesticides 2 to 3 times per year for generations. Those treatments go into the soil. Do they not trickle down to the aquifer? With all of the regulations and rules that LKQ has to adhere to, who's to say that they just might take better care of the aquifer in the future than we have in the past? Our family has considered the positive what ifs. What if the facility brings several jobs to the town? What if it brings truly needed funding to the town? What if LKQ truly becomes a partner and is a true asset to our community? The day we met with LKQ and came to an agreement, there was a current town council member present as well as a former member. The excitement on their faces afterwards when they said, "You can't imagine how this is going to help the town," spoke volumes. Some people don't want to see the positives or possibly accept the fact that our town council, planning commission, and zoning boards truly want what is best for the town of Lapel, whether they vote the way people want them to or not. 90% of the people in this room know our mother, who turned 92 this week. And thanks to social media, 100% of you now possibly know her address. While this information is public knowledge, placing that information on social media was irresponsible and dangerous, considering the tension this subject has caused the last few weeks. Our parents worked and lived in Lapel all of their lives. Both have contributed in several ways to the community through the years. When presented with the LKQ project, and before that, the proposed baseball complex, both decisions were quite simple for our mother. She wanted the town to benefit from her decision. This will probably be the first of many similar decisions for our town council, planning commission, and zoning boards. The landowners south of the proposed site are also realizing they don't own farm ground anymore, but something more valuable. and are waiting for opportunity to knock. It isn't easy to sell the land for any farmer. Change is hard, but inevitable, and it's coming. I assume former town councils knew this and expected the growth when they annexed several years ago. What we have learned the last few months is that we actually have no control over the sale of our own land due to the annexation. Not all will ever agree on what should or shouldn't be developed and where. There will always be some reason for someone to disagree with our decision to sell our own land. But is it fair or even legal for some to be able to dictate the outcome of our decision to sell if the buyer fully adheres to all zoning and use criteria? The landowners are 92 and 83. While when we get good health, they are wanting to begin liquidating their assets, and yet it turns out that decision does not belong to them. I don't care what you're selling, it is not a good feeling when you realize this. Hopefully this and future opportunities will not be met with the hatred a few in our town have spewed, while leading others to endure it. It is really quite possible that whether it is our family or other families waiting for the same opportunity, that we just simply wanted to make a decision that would benefit our town.
Any additional questions from the board for Kim?
I have a question for, I guess, town in general. I don't know if any town rep here can answer it, but is there any validity to that we are in the process of abandoning that well?
I don't think it's
I'm just asking if there's any validity to the talk that that wellhead is getting abandoned by the town. And our other two wellheads are up in town. I don't know if anybody here can answer that.
Have not heard anything. Is anyone here that really has heard or knows?
Nothing, you know?
The only thing I can tell you is, the only thing I can tell you, Rob Bellucci, Teresa Rutherford, I am the accounts payable clerk for the town of Lapel, former town council member. Rob Bellucci is our engineer, and I think one of the contracts we just signed, or the council just signed a couple weeks ago, they are getting ready to drill more test wells. They may possibly drill another one out there, but they're pretty sure a lot of our groundwater is coming from that well. I don't know where the other test well is gonna be that they're gonna drill for, but he did say, once that contract was signed, then they would start the process of, because we want to abandon that well. Whether we're gonna be able to or not, I can't tell you.
The Lapel well on South 13. Yeah,
I have another question. During the last meeting, a lot of talk was brought up about outdoor storage of the vehicles. Not necessarily after it's been dismantled, but when they're dropped off. Obviously, there has to be a loading and unloading process. Can you talk more about where they're stored before they're taken inside and how that process works?
Sure. And Randy, whatever you want to talk about that. Or shall I? Yeah. So here's what I can tell you based on my involvement today. And we did talk about that in preparation for tonight. Know this, the vehicles that are brought there have generally been out of service in either a body shop, auctioneer's yard for 90 days on average. So we may bring in several vehicles and they may be offloaded. They are inspected. They are typically on site. We have not designated an area on the site plan, but we will. If won't be out in the yard, for a few days, 3 to 5 days, before they will be brought in for the dismantling, process. So, all told, we're talking a handful, for a period of a few days, not months and months. Of course, you probably recall that the yard, the chassis, the carcasses, or whatever you want to term that, do stay out after processing for longer term, over a year typically, before they are scrapped out. Did that answer your question?
Does that holding area have any additional safety features in place to prevent spills, leakage, things like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, those things are held 90 days on average by a body shop or a yard. They inspect them, wherever they is, they inspect those before LKQ gets them, and then when they come on LKQ property, they are inspected again. In the event there is a leak, it's not accepted. That's, if Randy's here, and Randy, make sure I'm talking out.
He's way back there.
I know you're ways out, just make sure I'm covering you correctly here. You good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that, yeah.
Okay.
The auctions actually have. Sir.
Right there.
Randy's turning.
Randy Smith with LKQ. Folks, when these cars get in an accident, it goes through an amazing process, and the most cumbersome part of it is the insurance side of it. So car gets in an accident, bottom line is, by the time we see that car, it's probably 90 to 100 days. Title work, whatever else takes that period of time to make it happen. But what is important is, from the time the car's at the accident, the tow trucks clean up the mess at the accident, and secondly, at a body shop, they're under the same thing that we are. If there's oil or things, they have to take care of it. Then that car is usually moved to a company called Copart or IAA, which are huge. There are, even in Indianapolis, I bet there's 500 accidents a day. Those are all handled by insurance auctions. They are the same position we are. As a matter of fact, they're probably at more risk because all of these large facilities, they still have these cars with motors and trannies. They're required to take care of any oil or problems they're having. So once again, by the time the car gets to us, it's already been mitigated. The other thing is, they can't even load it onto a transport to bring it to us because of DOT issues. The guy won't accept the car. And the same thing when it comes to us. If that car has an issue that we see got by everybody, it goes directly into the facility. So really, the area of it setting in the yard, it's really no different than a regular parking lot. And one other comment to make, the car that's gonna have a problem is hit in the front. And that's probably about, of the cars we purchase, about 10% at the max. The rest are all hit in the back or side, so there is no other type of fluid. So once again, it's not that it's extremely rare that we even have an issue, and if it's cleaned up immediately, it is. But once again, that is where EPA, when they visit our place on a monthly or quarterly basis, whenever they're there, that's what they're looking for. And we would get written up if that was the case. So that's how the process goes with cars coming into a holding area before they're processed. It actually goes pretty quick.
And again, I'd follow up and just say, I think the way to mitigate that is take the site plan, if it's approved, designate an area that can hold 4 to 5 vehicles, see what the materials are underneath, what that would be, probably asphalt or concrete, and designate that as the only area where that could happen.
I don't know if I need a microphone. I think everybody can hear me. My name's Clay Parkinson. I live here in the Belt. I've been in the car business for 57 years. Some of that time was spent with rebuilding new cars, long time ago. You just said that when they come in, they don't have any fluids in them. Was that?
That's not what I said.
Okay, you said they've been mitigated, but they have fluids. In the video you showed, they were taking the transmission out of the car and draining the fluid out of it.
They do.
Is it correct?
That is correct.
So sitting out in the yard, they still have fluids in them.
That's what I think this was the question. So when you look at this building, a third of it is the dismantling process, right? So there's, again, I call this facility correctly, auto parts dismantling and distribution, right? So if you look at our building, one side is, oh, okay, I was just gonna try to describe where it comes in, yes.
My point is, when that vehicle comes in and it sits outside, it still has fluids. And anytime I hear somebody say maybe or if, or minimal, that tells me that there's still a possibility those fluids are gonna come out of that vehicle on the ground. Correct?
If you, yes, but here's what I would say, and this is what we've done in the past. Take the site plan, again, we're talking 4 vehicles? That's what we're talking about.
That isn't what you said the last
No,
meeting
what-
we had.
No, hold on a second. We're talking about something different. When the vehicles come to the facility, they're unloaded and go into the dismantling bay. If the dismantling bay is full, there could be a time when there's 3 to 4 vehicles that can't come in the dismantling bay, that are stored outside in a designated area for up to 3 days. That's exactly what we said right here. What I would suggest is, on the site plan, designate that area, and let's build a moat. If we're concerned that there's really gonna be fluids, which there's not, if there is, let's build a moat, and we'll contain it.
The fact that you said if item, finds a problem, they'll come in and they'll find you, but then the damage is already done.
Everybody's subject to regulation, right?
And everybody is subject to things happening that aren't under your control. That's what we're concerned with.
And you should be, and we're gonna mitigate every single opportunity we can, and we have. And again, the 6 facilities that we've built across the country, just like what we have shown, we've not encountered this problem. Could we? Yes.
One more question, and this is a question you probably can't answer or won't answer. Why would you come to Lapel when you've been turned down twice before? It makes us feel like bridesmaids.
Where have we been turned down for?
Pendleton and
No, I'm just,
Well, the way I understand it, you were turned down in Pendleton.
Pendleton, because their plan, their long-term plan, the area that we were trying to purchase was designated for high-end residential. That's,
So were we.
but I'm just saying, it was designated for something, it wasn't zoned industrial. It wasn't. But I mean, I'll answer any question, so seriously.
Hold on, please.
Why were you turned down there?
Yeah.
I didn't know we went to Anderson.
Hold your question.
The mayor didn't want it, it didn't go any further than the mayor.
Yeah.
It didn't even go to council or.
But for the record, did we make a presentation to Anderson or submit any type of thing to Anderson? Okay, all right.
We have your attention, please. Hold your comments, please, okay? All right, try to get things back in order here. So we've had the comments from LQK. If you filled out or would like to speak, I've got a few people who have filled out cards here. I'd like to have you take time, to come to the front, ask your questions or your comments. If it's a comment that's been made previously, we just ask you to just forego your time because it's already been stated. So we'll start. I mean, Clay, you already spoke. Appreciate your time. The ones that I already have on the list here, we'll start with Amy Gwynn. Amy here. There's a microphone.
I'll never mind.
Where's the?
Good evening. My name is Amy Gwynn. Many of you know me as well, local farmer. just wanted to express my thoughts. I have 7 acres located between what I affectionately call the Rose Garden and the town of Lapel. And with that consideration, I probably have had many offers like the Wilson family have as well for their family farm. I have never had an offer for that 7 acres that wasn't in kind or wanting me to give it to someone. I've had crop damage multiple times from runoff. It does have boundaries or borders. I will say as a side note, I do work for Corteva, for a crop protection company. If anyone wants to understand about herbicides, I definitely can elaborate on that. So as a note, I think we all need to think through this and what it can do, both from a water supply standpoint as well as property value. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Next individual is Sherry Steiner. Sherry Steiner, thank you.
Hello, thank you. My name is Sherry Steiner. I'm with Purdue University, Fort Wayne. I'm associated with Blackford County Concerned Citizens since 2014. We've been looking into the environmental impacts and possible health impacts of a steel recycling plant in Hartford City. And if there's one thing that we've learned, it's that just because you can doesn't mean you should. There's a legally acceptable range of pollution that is built into the law. And we've over time documented elevated pollution from the steel recycling plant in the air, the water, and the soil, all of which fall within legally accepted ranges. Because of that, we've looked into how are these levels developed, and they're developed based on one pollutant, one avenue of exposure to a healthy adult. The problem with the steel recycling plant is that there are multiple chemicals, multiple avenues of exposure in a residential neighborhood to people with vulnerable health conditions to begin with. So the research that I'm a part of in collaboration with Blackford County Concerned Citizens has been looking at what are the health effects of exposure to chemical soups through multiple avenues of exposure: air, water, and soil. What are the health effects? Several people have died during the course of our study. If you do choose to go in the direction of approving something like this, a couple things I would encourage you to take into consideration. Is there car crushing, or is it just parts dismantling? If there is car crushing, do they use gas torches to cut it? Because a Texas study of steel recycling facilities have shown that the use of gas torches create airborne hexavalent chromium, which is one of the most carcinogenic type things that you can have. Is the floor lined? Will compliance with the laws be locally enforced? Because the EPA and item cannot be relied upon. And we have found in Hartford City, item has documented that there, even though yes, Hartford Iron and Metal is located on ground that has clay that has been discussed as not likely to leak into the groundwater, there are pollution plumes that have been documented that are migrating to the city wells. Thank you.
What is a pollution plume? Can you explain that?
That is pollutants from the crushing activities that have gone into the groundwater and that are migrating. They're moving in the groundwater to the city wells. It got through the clay.
Please hold questions until we get through all our comments. Next we will have, I believe it's Eric Evans. Eric Evans? And again, we are trying to limit comments to 3 minutes.
I will keep it brief, I
Thank you.
promise. My name is Eric Evans. I'm the president of Blackford County Concerned Citizens. Our group was founded more than 10 years ago because Blackford County has the highest incidence of cancers, all types of cancers, and neurological diseases of any county in the state of Indiana. So our group sought to try to get some answers for this. So I would keep this short. Our research over the years, along with Dr. Steiner, indicated that we felt that the source of a lot of the pollution, the deadly pollution, was coming from, and I won't be so polite as to call it a steel recycling facility as the owners do. It's a junkyard, plain and simple. And what they determined was that, number one, they had been cited by EPA several years before for having the PCBs. And they entered into a consent decree in a federal court in Indianapolis to clean up and to do certain things. IDEM was supposed to be following up to see that they did those things. When we started checking, IDEM had sat for 7 years and never done anything, nor had the people cleaned up their site. So I would be brief. I will tell you, you cannot depend on IDEM. There are some fine, good people that work there. They are overworked and underpaid, very simply. And the only thing they do is put out fires and fall on grenades. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Next is, Amy, I believe it's
Crosby.
Thank you. My name is Amy Crosby. My questions are kind of spanned between both the LKQ representatives as well as some of the board members. Not specific board members, just in general. For the LKQ, you guys stated that you were flown in here, so you don't live in Indianapolis, you don't live in Indiana. Is that correct? He said he flew in?
They took my microphone away. I did not.
Okay, where did you fly from?
Sir.
Where, sir?
So, Ridgewood, Texas.
Texas, okay, that's fine. I just wanted to know because these are local Indiana farmers, they're local Indiana people, so a lot of what you said, I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna pick it apart. You spoke about, I don't know how to not do that.
I can speak loud enough. If y'all can hear me, I'll speak that way. Okay.
Make it quick, man. Make it quick.
Okay, so the staff used the aquifer map previously. When was that used? When was the staff, you had spoken earlier and said that the staff used the aquifer map previously.
There is on case, and it was in the staff report, it was linked to it before for the planning commission and then for the town council. All the information is posted online still.
I have it. Thank you. I just wanted to know where that came from.
please, let's go through your questions.
Questions, yes, sir.
And then we'll answer them.
Okay. What about the water runoff? You mentioned that would be the number one thing that we need to be concerned about. Where does it run off to? You're saying you're gonna build a retention pond, but what about Mud Creek that's right there that borders the whole back of that property? The vehicle carcasses would be the only thing that's out there. Again, kind of to follow up on the doctor's comment or the question, she said, are you crushing them? Is that something that you answered? Because I didn't hear that answer. And how are you crushing them or taking them apart? Who will cover, you spoke about fire hydrants earlier, Oksana, and I was wondering who's gonna cover that. I'm literally writing these down as we go. Did citizens provide you the picture of the map that y'all used? Or did LKQ provide you that picture of where the wellhead protection areas were?
Citizens.
Okay. Okay, so there's more, don't worry. You said this is gonna be, oh, I know what it was. Miss Angie spoke earlier, Miss Howell. I love Angie Howell. And she spoke and she said that the land south of this location was on hold because of something else, and so it sat there. It was on hold because it was gonna be next to a junkyard. That is something that the people need to know and that it needs to be stated.
That is true.
That's what from my credible source said. Okay, so the main things I do want to talk about is you mentioned taxes, tax revenue from this. Do you know what a TIF fund is? Okay, the land specifically for Miss Carolyn Wilson's land, I've looked at the taxes for there's 3 or 4 different parcels that went into this one project. they have been lowered for the last 3 years, ever since Shelby Gravel or Shelby Materials has created this the TIF district. So their land went from being maybe 60, 70,000. Either way, it has dropped $31,000 in 2 years. So how do you say that that is going to be a tax incentive for the town? Because anything over that that's taxed goes into the TIF. That is not controlled by the town, that is not in the general fund. So I want to know, you stated that, I feel like that was misleading. Another part you said was, I'm so sorry, it's hard to answer questions right away or write lists when we can't answer them when they're spoken. You said the economic department came to you. Who was that? Gentleman in the blue jacket, you said you were approached by this project with the economic department. When was that, and who was that?
Rob Sparks.
And when was that, Mr. Sparks?
Probably about 5 months ago now.
And so, hold your response, just
Sorry.
the questions asked.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's hard to keep up that way, but Mr. Sparks, and I'll just make it a generalized question, sir. Why was the town not informed about these things then so we could make votes then and we could have discussion then and it's not standing room only? That really matters for the people. As far as the aquifer and the wellheads go, when you're pumping wells, it doesn't matter. They're 3,360 feet is what I measured. Oksana actually told me it was shorter because she said it was 0.54 miles. 0.54 miles are the wellheads to where this location is gonna be. When you suck wells, you pump water. It's like siphoning water out of the ground. So you can pull it from any direction. And when you have groundwater that is like a residual runoff and it leaches into the ground, it's not just going into your aquifer, it can run anywhere because of rain. So I just wanted to you're not a hydrogeologist, and none of you have had a geologist come. I spoke to a DNR with a hydrogeologist. I facilitated my information to Cam Paddock. I emailed it to him the other day. I also spoke to, that was a DNR, I spoke to the U.S. Geological Survey. Gentlemen, have any of you done that? Have any of you called them? I spoke to them. We worked together to get Purdue out here. We've done a lot of research. I'm dealing with Mud Creek Conservancy, the Indiana Land Protection Alliance. Those are many, many people that all are affected by this. I just want y'all to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you, Amy, for your questions. Next is Mr. Tim.
Are we gonna answer?
We'll get there. Mr. Tim Northam.
Somebody ready now. I'm not even gonna try the microphone unless you guys can't hear me, because it's kind of not working great. My name's Tim Northam. I'm a retired hydrogeologist of 42 years. I've been retired a couple of years, still do some consulting, and I was invited to come here tonight to talk about aquifers and your well field, and seems like there's a lot of interest in that, and I think it's awesome that this town gets that kind of turnout for, important things like this. Because groundwater, that's kind of been my area of expertise for the last 25 years. I've worked all across the state of Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, and Illinois on projects involving safe drinking water. And wellhead protection has been one of those areas that I was into for, with the 25 years, but when the program came out back in the 90s, I got involved with an engineering company and worked with, I think, 40 or so communities around the state, small communities like Lapel and big ones like Indianapolis. So that's kind of my background. This morning, I just got this invite here in the last 48 hours. This morning I I was familiar with Lapel's well field because I've been out there in the past on previous work. I worked for Citizens Energy Group out of Indianapolis. I've been to their well field down there on the south side as well. I looked at some well logs. Well logs are really important to to geologists to identify what the aquifer looks like. We have these aquifer maps that have been shown, and it's a great resource, but it's very generalized. And if the statement that we're completely covered underground by aquifers is true, I would have had a job. I mean, it's not that easy, because the sediments that are down south of town are deposited by glaciers, and there's a lot of variability in aquifers. You can have a well and move 50 feet and not have a well. But down in the south, there at 3813 where Lapel's well is, very strong aquifer. It lays on top of bedrock, and it's the average depth of the aquifer is about 35 feet down there. Some of the wells that have been drilled are shallower. They encountered the aquifer at 25 feet. I looked at this morning. I looked at to see if there was a source water assessment done for Lapel's well field and done for Citizens. There has not been one. They covered a lot of communities, but they didn't cover those two. So, back when I was doing wellhead protection for a living, if I had rated that aquifer's risk to susceptibility to contamination, I give it a moderate risk. And that's based on the depth to that sand and gravel. It's shallow. If it was covered by 80 foot of clay, it would be a low rating in my mind. But since it's only got anywhere from 25 to 35 foot of clay-rich sediments, in my brain, it's got a moderate risk of contamination. So now we're looking at the wellhead protection area. I think I've not met you. Is it Osana? So you said that Lapel does not have a wellhead protection plan. I heard that pretty early on. If you don't have a wellhead protection plan, you've been in violation for over 20 years as a community. All community public water supply systems in the state of Indiana that use groundwater as a source, they have to have a wellhead protection plan. And so when I read through what she had prepared, I see this Citizens map, but I don't see a wellhead protection delineation that was done for Lapel. I know it's been done. Maybe it was incorporated into the Citizens work. I don't know, because I don't have a copy of the plan. I probably could have got one today for my end, but it's Columbus Day, so it didn't work out. But it is a publicly available document, and the town has a copy of that. And I would suggest that they also have a local planning team that's required by law. That local planning team, maybe some of you gentlemen sitting here are on that local planning team, I don't know. Usually it's town council members, it's volunteer fire department chief, maybe the board of zoning. You know, people that are involved in land use, and the whole idea behind well protection is prevention of groundwater contamination. That's EPA developed it, and IDEM adopted their own rules. They have a very specific rules on what that entails, and I'm not going to go into that kind of detail, but there's a local planning team here. I would hope that they have looked at this, because that's part of wellhead protection. Even if this area is outside of that aquifer down on the south end is a very strong aquifer. It's great for years to come if it stays safe and stays clean. And I know Lapel has 2 wells based on the database that I did. They have one here in town. It's an old bedrock well. If that well ever fails, it's old. If it fails, if I'm your geologist, I'm gonna tell you to go down to the south side of town, and that's where to get additional water supply, because it is a good aquifer. So, yes, sir.
Wrap up,
If I was, if this was left up to my decision, I don't think I'd take the risk on putting a heavy industry next to your well field.
Okay, hopefully, it's still, I don't know how well this mic's working, it's kind of iffy here. Christy Workman.
I'm not an expert, I'll leave the science to the scientists, you've got enough of those tonight. I'm just the big mouth president, who always has an opinion about everything. And I'll say this, I'll say first off, much to what Amy said, you guys got on a plane, or you drove 30 miles to get here today. You don't have to live with this decision, we do. So please don't come in here and be hostile, and don't come in here and lecture us on comedy, or whatever other term you want to use for pleasantry, because at the end of the day, you came to the meeting and said you wanted to be good partners. However, what you've come with is different information. Last meeting, we were told, oh, those cars will sit out there 24 to 48 hours. Mr. Paddock said, what about holiday weekends? Would it be longer? No, maybe 3 days. Now we're hearing 3 to 5 days. The information is shifting depending on who's delivering it. And, you know, there seems to be no real consideration when you're speaking to us, that you're speaking to people who have generational legacies in this land. Generation upon generation. Yes, this family spoke about their generational legacy, but not just with the farms in this town. You'll hear it, people from here. There's a term in Lapel, from here. And you'll hear it, I'm not from here, so I know I've heard a lot. But my point to you is this. You come here and you essentially said at the beginning of the meeting, what you implied at the beginning of the meeting with your attorney, that if we don't do this, you're gonna force it on us. That's what I heard. If we prove, or we feel like we've proven that we meet the criteria, you have to do this. That's not partnership. That's not buy-in. That's telling us you're gonna cram it down our throats. And that leads us to think, or some of us, I'll speak for myself alone, leads me to think that if things go bad, you're gonna cram that down our throats too.
Next is, I'm trying to read the name here, Aja Williams, or AJ Williams? Asia.
She had to leave.
All right. Dennis Hayes, and if we could get your address as well, take that when you come up.
Hi, I'm Dennis Hayes. I hate public speaking with a passion, so bear with me here. Okay. For those of you who don't know me, I own a auto and truck service shop, and if anybody in this town would benefit from this, it would be me. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. I have a commercial account with LKQ. I buy from them weekly. I have deliveries to my shop on a regular basis. But that's not why I'm here, to give LKQ a promotion here. I've got questions. And, as a show of hands of everybody in the room, who has had experience with pulling engines, transmissions, radiators, mechanical work? Okay, I see a large number of hands in here. Out of you that raised your hands, how many have ever done this without making a spill or having residual fluid on the ground, or you pull a vehicle in the shop, you pull the engine, you have to shove it out. 3 or 4 days later, when you get the parts, you go out, there's a puddle underneath it. You got to dry it up. I mean, it's the way it is. So, out of everybody I've seen raise their hands in here, I didn't see any of you LKQ representatives. So, is anybody ever you're well versed in mechanics?
40 years.
Good, that's awesome. So have you never had any contamination or spills or anything on the ground when you do something?
Not on the ground, I have on the concrete in the shop.
But wait a minute, wait a minute.
All the questions are to be addressed in the question.
Okay, so I'll address it to you. So I didn't see any of you raise your hands either. So I'll just speak from experience, okay? And anybody out here that has anything to add or object or agree with me, would speak your mind. But I'm speaking from experience. When you do something that's a major mechanical undertaking like that, and you pull an engine, you pull a transmission, radiator, open up the brake system, whatever, you're gonna have spill off. For them to tell you that they're gonna pull a major component out of the vehicle, shove it outside, and let it sit there for who knows how long, and there's not gonna be any runoff or contamination, that's a fairy tale. It's not possible. And if I understand correctly, the area where these vehicles are gonna be stored is on gravel, correct? It's not concrete. Am I correct? The storage area is gravel, right?
Right. Continue. We got that as a question.
I'm sorry?
We have that as a question, so continue with any other questions.
That's all. I mean, I just wanted to present to you from experience that what they're telling you is there's not gonna be any runoff or contamination on the ground when the vehicle's put outside for storage that's completely bogus. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Next is Billy Jovan. Again, we need your address.
All right.
Hi, I live directly across from where you guys are putting your site. My concern is, like you're talking about the water for the city and everything. What are you gonna do to protect me? Like I'm literally not even a football field away from there. And, we bought our home 4 years ago and we planned on keeping this property for a long time. But what are you gonna do to protect our well, like our property from being damaged and us to, being harmed by this? And you say, it's very little chance that it would affect the city's water or everybody else's, but there's a lot greater chance for you to affect our well and our property. So my concern is, what are you gonna do to protect us?
Where do you live?
We are directly across
Just
there's that concrete barn or the pig house.
Yes.
We are right across from it.
Yes.
Like, here, I can show you a picture. Like,
I know we didn't put in, we're right there too. With her,
okay, so this is our wellhead. This is their property, and right back here is Shelby.
Next is
Like the
Amy
Shelby
Egley.
plant. So it is, like, not far.
And we need an address, please.
Sure.
124 East Fifth Street.
We wanna make sure that they do something. All right, well, I got hands I'm gonna go put up, so.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully-
I also
hopefully I'll
hate
find
public
answers
speaking, and
somehow.
so please bear with me.
Okay, thank you.
I initially got brought into this, and there's gonna be a couple of questions, but I think it's important to do a basis of background. Speaking of generations, my family helped build this town. And so I do speak from a line of family that contributed to this area significantly. And I know what their legacy is and what they want to see for this town, and it does involve growth. When I was first brought all of this information, I'll be very honest with you, I was very hesitant and I was very much against it just because I didn't have all the facts, and that's what we're here to establish, right? Facts. And as I started doing my own research and meeting with different civil engineers, individuals that could fill in the gaps for me and go over potential site plans with me,
I started realizing that there is this basis of fear that is being put into our community because there are a lot of unknowns. There are going to be a lot of unknowns because this is a pilot facility. There's only 6 of them so far. And to say that they are going to break all of these rules and laws, have you ever thought about the fact that it's possible that these facilities have been designed to address the concerns? Because I'm gonna tell you, a lot of you may not side with me. I've been against it, I've been neutral, I've been for it, I've been all over the board with this. I'll be very honest with you. But the level of hate and the level of negativity and toxicity that is being filtered through this town is appalling and it's unacceptable. And to the Wilsons, I am so sorry on behalf of many people, because not everybody in this town feels that way. And for you guys that did fly out, or maybe people who came in from Florida or Virginia for this, it's very, very possible that you may not understand who we are as a town and how we operate and the growth. But I do have some questions about what you are going to do, because my hesitation individually and some other people, I can very much say that I'm standing here representing people that are either neutral, not necessarily for it because there are a lot of unknowns, or they are for it because we want to see growth. We want to partner with people that want the best for our community. But those are gonna have to come with questions that get answered. And I think there's a proper way to have those questions answered, and it's not the way that it's been done over the past few weeks. And so, some of the questions that I have are more environmentally based. You know, we've talked about economics, we've talked about item, we've talked about EPA, etc. So my concerns, and I think some others, is I've talked with some people that are kind of on the front end of it. So when you're, you know, assembling cars and you're doing the things that you have to do, and we're kind of on the back end of it here. So in the front end of it, you've got individuals that are sometimes put on site, like they stay on site and they do the regulations. So every time it rains, every time there's runoff, they're going out and they're doing the chemical testing. And I'm not scientific, so I don't know what that looks like. But they're doing what is necessary to ensure that all of the regulations are met and they're followed. And I'm very curious if that's something that could be an option, because I've heard it kind of addressed, well, maybe they'll be in quarterly or monthly, and correct me if I'm wrong. But what could we do to make this successful? I have not heard one person say, what can we do to make this a successful partnership? And that bothers me. And that's not gonna be the popular opinion. And I'm sorry if I pissed a lot of you off. But I do believe in this town, and I do believe the people in this town want good. But we've got to figure out a way to successfully work together, because if this passes, we've got to do it. And so with that, so that's one question is, you know, environmental testing, EPA, what is that really going to look like? And what has that looked like in the sites that are like going to be this, not the other ones? Another question was posed online.
Real quick, you're at your time, so.
Can I ask the town question? Because this was for some other people too. Okay, so we know that there's a gas line out there already, but there was a concern about who in the town, if anybody knows, is gonna be responsible for the expense of providing that gas, and what the town is going to do to ensure that there is enough purchased for everyone. And that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alright, try to get things finished up here. David Hormel? Right here.
Just real quick.
And then
Need an address?
Address.
It's, yeah, right on the line.
Is it actually the Bell address or is it a-
Yeah. Kind of my question, and I've not really heard much as far as the facility, I don't know much about it. How big of a facility do you all have, and how much of that is there gonna be like pavement? Is it gonna be gravel? The reason I ask is because, you know, the ground absorbs a certain amount of water to make it to the aquifer. And then you guys talked about, you know, putting something in to have the water runoff go somewhere else. So where does that runoff go? And is there gonna be, I don't know, I guess like I say, a lot of ground cover that can't absorb that water anymore. So that's just all I have, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
We have two left. Beth White.
I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget them. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Beth White, and I'm a resident of Lapel. So just a couple questions. In terms of being in alignment with the comprehensive plan, one of the things I wonder about is our ability to also make sure that with these incoming revenues and the jobs and the trade that will bring to our community, that we have the right amount of infrastructure to support it. So for example, you know, where are we at with capacity of our drinking water today? What about our electricity, gas, things like that? So similar to Amy's comment, but all utilities, internet, those kinds of things. Making sure it's what we need for the upgrades and the revenue to bring to town. And then the second thing is around the place that you're gonna store the cars while they're kind of before they go inside, right? While they're being checked out. Just curious what the plan is for security around those cars when they're coming in to make sure it's a safe space for, you know, for our town and our community and the workers that will be there as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Beth. Last, we have Sandeep Singh.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sandeep Singh, and I am the attorney representing the demonstrators in this case. Mr. Cade was here last time, and I am his representative and representing the good people of Lapel. I guess in this section it's just questions. Is that correct, sir?
Yeah.
All right.
Questions or comments, but we're, you know, I know you are representing 4 individuals, so we'll give you a little bit extra time.
Okay, and what time does this end?
We'll limit it to 10 minutes.
We got till 6:30 in the morning.
We might.
We'll be done. 10 minutes. Guys.
10 minutes total?
Yeah, no more. Sorry. We're trying to, things limited here.
We have 1 hour for LKQ and for the staff report. So I would ask for your consideration for way more than 10 minutes, please.
Absolutely.
You are representing 4 demonstrators, so if we were given 3 minutes apiece, we get 12. So it's not a lot more, but we'll give you 12.
And is there going to be another public meeting after? Are we going to continue this business?
We will have discussions afterwards.
Understood, thank you, sir. My question to the board would be, how many members of the board have been to an LKQ site? And how many have been to a LKQ site that's part of the pilot program? And how many of the board members have been to a closed LKQ site? I know that there was a video that was displayed by the staff, Asana, and we would ask for this board's consideration to allow us to play a video that was reported from a member of the community that shows LKQ site.
We have someone.
Do you have the technology?
Can we email it to you?
Yes.
Do you want me to email it to you?
Yeah, Asana's.
Okay.
I keep talking while they're doing that.
So while the technology is being figured out, so there was comment about dismantling and distribution component. I believe this has already been asked by one of the members. Will there be crushing? So we want an explicit answer for that. There was mention of an expert report that was provided. Where is that expert report? There was an Apex report, I think that's what was referenced. When was that completed, and has that been provided to the board and to the public? And who authored that report, and is that individual present here for public comment?
Is there a well driller here? Is there a well driller here?
There was a comment by an LKQ representative that this would create 70 direct jobs. I had reviewed the last meeting minutes for September 18th, and that record was corrected. It's not creating 70 direct new jobs. That's not what's happening here. Let's be very clear about that. There's going to be a closing of other facilities, and there will be a transfer of jobs. And another LKQ representative had backtracked that comment and made the record straight there. So we want to make that clear today. There was a question about there will be no outside storage, but there is a loading and unloading process. How many vehicles? How many vehicles in a day that are brought over? What's the vehicular traffic pattern look like? Have there been studies done, traffic studies done? And if there has been a traffic study done, has that been produced to the board and to the public? You know, there was, I'll direct this straight to LKQ representative. You mentioned that you have to answer to IDEM, you have to answer to the federal government, you have to answer to the county, to the town council. And that when the EPA comes monthly or quarterly, we would get written up if there was violations or spillage. I want to address the 50+ violations and $7.2 million in fines that LKQ has been, that there have been violations against LKQ. And if you want to speak upon that, specifically I'll mention one reference to an EPA violation that was recently filed, and I would like an LKQ representative to talk on that. There was a failure to comply with permit requirements concerning the stormwater pollution prevention plan. There was a failure to comply with permit requirements concerning the preparedness, prevention, and contingency plan. There was a failure to implement adequate control measures or take corrective action. Failure to provide adequate erosion and settlement controls. Failure to adequately conduct or report compliance. Failure to conduct or adequately document routine inspections. There was mention from Oscana in the staff report that there will be a lot of permitting, but the track record for LKQ shows that's not what LKQ does. There have been violations, repeated violations, millions of dollars in fines. And who is going to be responsible? Are they going to shove that down the throat of the Lapel residents? But there was some controversy that was brought by Mr. Katie at the last meeting regarding a conflict of interest. So I want to address some questions directly to the board about a potential conflict of interest. Have any of the board members discussed this project since the last public meeting? Mr. Panic, have you spoken to your brother Landon about this project either before the last meeting or since the last meeting? And if so, what did you guys discuss? Did any representative of LKQ have any discussion with any board members prior to this upcoming meeting? If this project were to go through and approved by this board, I would pose this question to the board. Who do you think will be awarded the contract for the gravel for this project? Further, who does this board think will be awarded the paving contract for this project? Who does this board think will be awarded the paving or the I'm gonna ask this to the board, which trucking company do you think will be awarded the hauling contract for this project? There was mention of the wellhead protection plan. Has that been disclosed? Has that been produced? Has that been approved? Has that been put in place? There was a public access request sent by my office on October 4th, 2023. We have not received a response, so we would like that to be addressed by the board. I'll comment on the motion to recuse board member Mr. Cam Paddock that was filed by my office. This was previously addressed and we want to put this on the record. Again, it was put on the record last time, but that is a pending motion that is before this board and it has not been ruled upon yet.
Can I interrupt on that?
Sure.
I know no authority that allows a board to determine when a member of that board has a conflict. That's up to the individual person themselves, whether or not there's bias. Mr. Paddock's been made aware of that, he's discussed it with council, he's made his decision. But the board itself does not have the authority that I'm aware of in statute or any kind of common law to vote to remove a member due to an alleged conflict of interest.
And is the decision of Mr. Paddock that he has no conflict?
He's still here.
He is going to participate in this decision?
That's my understanding. My advice to him is not answering questions. This board is the judge in this particular setting. They don't answer questions. They're going to weigh the evidence presented by both sides. Now, I don't think the questioning my advice to the board would be to not answer the questions directly to it. This is the judicial body. It's like asking the judge questions. I don't agree with it, and my advice is not to answer any of those questions.
But we were required to talk to the board and ask them questions and not LKQ. How does that work?
Any comments on that, Jeff?
No.
You can ask us questions, you can answer them, you cannot, it's up to us to decide what we want to do. We can discuss those questions amongst ourselves. You brought your questions to us, we will not necessarily answer them directly, but we will discuss everything, all the evidence that's been provided before we make our decision.
I will respond to Mr. Graham briefly. Pursuant to Indiana Code 3674909B, the board, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall enter into the board's records the fact that a regular member has such a disqualification, and that has not happened yet. And if it's the decision of this board to defer, please state that to the public.
I disagree with your interpretation, and I'm not going to get into a legal joust with you over this. Nobody wants to hear that.
And it's, I'm preserving the record.
Well, I understand, and that's well preserved. It was brought up at the last meeting, it's been brought up again. It's been brought up probably 5 times, so I think it's well preserved.
And there's no decision on that, correct? There's no
This board
final
does not have
decision.
the authority to make that decision, only Mr. Paddock does.
Based on our recommendation from our legal counsel, we don't have that authority. It's up to that individual alone, and at this point, Mr. Paddock is still sitting on this board.
And you've recommended to Mr. Paddock to not answer the question whether he is disqualified or not, correct?
I'm not going to tell you what I told Mr. Paddock. I'm not ethically allowed to, other than Mr. Paddock is still here.
Well, I do think it's important for this board, for the general board, to know the relationship from Mr. Paddock, Landon Paddock, which is Cam's brother, is the vice president of Arco Design, who built a warehouse for LKQ in Arkansas, and partners with LKQ to construct his warehouses. And those are one of the, questions I pose to this board, whether, who do you believe will get the contracts? So that's what that's tendered towards.
Understood, and we are at the end of your time. I will allow you to show your video, and then we'll be done. Thank you.
There's no more time?
You're beyond by about a minute already, sorry.
The two videos that you're gonna see, they're my videos, so he asked me to tell you. I can give you the addresses if you'd like the addresses of each location. It is in Virginia, it is in Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia is a very wealthy, very expensive area. One of them is the oldest city in Virginia, it's Dumfries, Virginia, and it is an expired LKQ plant. They're excavating currently, they're pulling out all kinds of stuff, there's lots of parts that are just buried under gravel and sand. Why, I hope it's you guys that's excavating. It's an $8 million piece of land, so your sarcasm is really disturbing and it shows your character to the people that want to help you help them.
Where is your?
This is a place that was there for 20 years.
Yeah, this is here for 20 years. It just closed recently and they're excavating now, finding all of these parts. It's in Dumfries, Virginia.
About how long is this video?
It's 2 minutes total.
Okay.
I clipped it a lot.
It still shows you all the colors on it.
If you Google it, that location, it still shows all the cars there. It's a freshly moved, freshly dumped spot.
Yep, there's the building right there.
This is where your children have
Okay,
to
here. And this was where their storage lot was. Ray calipers or everything.
I'm not a videographer and I'm not a part specialist, but I can see what I can see.
But enough to know. AQ still owns this property. It's valued at over $6 million, which is really hella cheap for Northern Virginia. But it's also because it's industrial. And I get some pictures.
Okay, now to the back of the property and you find LKQ receipts all over it, like little order numbers.
Walk over here just a little bit. There you can see the trash. It's okay, cute. Okay, cute.
This is what they would do for your children.
The warehouse no distance is LKQ property.
That's it. That was the old one. Now the next one is a new one. It's only 30 seconds long. And it's in the next one to note is in the wealthiest county in the United States. It's Loudoun County, Virginia. That is where the next one comes from. About 45 minutes away.
How spring is theirs.
What we're picturing is going to be here. I'm just pointing out rental companies, other warehouses.
LKQ, 22 days, 23 days.
But you can see on the ground parts sitting there. Water runoff on the ground. That's it.
Thank you for
Another resident in Lapel said the same, he did the same thing in Ohio, in Dayton and Cincinnati.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We have one more gentleman wanting to speak. Give your name and address.
Greg Weaver, 9465 Birmingham Boulevard, Lapel.
I had a big lengthy typewritten message I was gonna send and I opted not to do that. I do have some past experience. I served as fire chief for 6 years in Northern Indiana on a professional department and had the opportunity to go to a lot of Plan Commission, BZA meetings, 911 Communication Center, City Council, Board of Works, and was pretty involved in all of that. One thing remained constant in all of the Board of Zoning appeal meetings, and I'm seeing it here. It starts out with one or two people that will object to anything proposed. It could be a sandwich shop or an ice cream store, because it's gonna create too much trash. The lighting will be, affect other properties. And from there, it always snowballs. Now with social media, people can put anything and everything out on social media with no checks and balances. And I think it's a travesty when social media assassinates people of this community. Wilson's being one. City council member that it's going to be good for his business. Plan commission members, council members, because one or two, 5 people don't think it's a good idea, and you can come up with every reason in the world. Everything that I've heard here tonight is they are going to contain the fluids. They're willing to create a dike for the 3 or 4 vehicles that may have to sit outside. And if the groundwater contamination is the biggest issue, I challenge you to think that Shelby Material, Don Smock Auctioneer, Pilot Gas Station with boom trucks, semis parked back there, draining fluid all the time, Love's Truck Stop with all the semis in the back, and Nuco Metals. I understand that's not Lapel. Water doesn't know the boundaries. If you're truly worried about contamination, that's where you need to start. I think we all want what's best for the town of Lapel. And right now, the character assassination and the name calling is not doing any good. Again, what I've heard, it looks like a good proposition, and I would encourage the members to vote in favor.
All right, Mike, do you hear me? Not working again? How about now? A little better? All right, we're trying to deal with this. Okay, we've had a lot of questions asked of LKQ, and hopefully they were able to get most of it written down, and there were a lot of questions there. So if we could turn it over to them to address.
I think Joe Calder again for the record, and Jim Nelson and I think are gonna tag team to try to answer as many of the questions as we can. I'm gonna tackle one that came up in a couple of different citizens, and that is with respect to the well protection area, or wellhead protection area. And what we'd like to say is that our Apex report did address that based on, and I'm reading this, I'll just read the paragraph since it's only 2 sentences. Lastly, multiple documents provided by Lapel Municipal Water and Citizens Energy Group outline the wellhead protection area for the State Road 13 well. The site, meaning the site that's in question tonight, is located outside of the wellhead protection areas and approximately 2,000 feet from the closest wellhead protection boundary. So I think that addresses concerns that were raised by a few folks with respect to, well, the purpose of wellhead protection, drinking water, etc. I'll have Jim answer the question just about car crushing, maybe?
Sure, we can take that. So I believe I sent to Oksana, I'm not sure, but we have specifications for the actual crushing machine that is used. And we can get the specifications to the board, let everybody look at it, but it's Overbuilt is the name of the machine. The crushing takes place again on a site plan. We usually designate an area that's in the middle of the site. So if you think how big this site is, the crushing itself
and there's testing that goes with the specifications, produces, I'll make sure I get it right, a decibel level at 150 feet. So the crusher will always be, it's a mobile crusher, doesn't stay there, comes to the middle of the site, crushing is done, the dB level provided at 150 feet. There is,
Is it done, under a container?
hold on a second, let me finish.
Or is it open air?
Yeah, it's
Open air?
it's not in the warehouse, it happens in the yard. At 150 feet, this machine provides a dB level of less than 70 dBs. That's the same as a conversation. That's the level of conversation.
I don't care about the sound.
Well, but I'm just saying that, but again, have you guys, has there been, I mean, I'm gonna ask you a question. Have there been any EPA testings of the concrete batch plant next to our proposed facility?
Too wrong to make it right.
Okay, but I'm just saying, let's not go there. I'm trying to keep to the, yeah, let's keep to this. There was a comment or a question, I couldn't tell, with regards to new jobs. Somebody said that they're not going to be new jobs because other facilities are being shut down and they're transferred over. Where does it state that? Where did we state that?
Last meeting. Last meeting.
September 18th.
So that there were gonna be no new jobs created here? The point is, there will be. And in fact, folks, I grew up in a small town, okay? And so I'm trying to just get to the point like I think you guys would. You have a great community here, but there is a lot of dissension amongst you guys, and I can tell your friends and your family, you guys are gonna be here together for a long time. Let's do what's right, okay? I promise you, we are gonna do exactly what we say we're gonna do.
How do we know
We-
that? Yes, sir. I'll walk out.
You know, it's been said before, sometimes you just have to take somebody's word for it, right? Right? Okay, anyway, there are gonna be new jobs created, and in fact, there's gonna be scholarship, every community LKQ goes into with these programs, there'll be a scholarship established for local student or students that may not be able to go to college if not for that scholarship. We have firefighters come to the project and conduct testing on site for their testing. So they're gonna be a great member of your community when they're here. Traffic study, I was gonna address that. We will absolutely, as part of the process for permitting, you have to get a traffic study. We've provided our traffic studies from the last two projects we've done. It outlines those, it will be no different. And I'll let Joe go and then I'll come back.
I'm going to address the question from the gentleman about pulling parts from the cars when they're brought to the facility, and his concern that, yes, they will leak on the ground, that, you know, he's an expert on his business, being in the body shop business. What we have done for this facility and what we've presented to you is that all of the pulling of those components, transmission, radiator, etc., happens inside with the cars on lifts, with all the liquids being put into an above ground storage tank system that is transported into a larger bay in a separate room with a large above ground storage tank that is then examined and hauled away by a third party vendor in compliance with all laws. As a fail-safe, there's also a trench system underneath that, but there are significant steps that are taken to avoid exactly the kind of thing, based on his experience, that can happen when pulling components out of vehicles. As to the folks that live to the east of the site, I think there were two of them that mentioned, what are you gonna do to protect us from stormwater runoff? We will actually have to capture all of the water that comes onto our site from the east. We cannot repel it back. We will pull everything that's coming in onto the site today, route it to our detention system, which will not only always be wet, It'll be clay lined, but we'll have a plan and a permit to clean the water before it can be discharged into Mud Creek. And that has to go through the drainage board. That'll be a public meeting, folks, so if you don't believe what I'm saying here to the board tonight, you can come to the drainage board and get all the technical specifications that you need in that regard. But all the folks to the east will be taking water onto our property from yours, if it currently comes on, and handling that through our stormwater detention pond. Let's see. The Apex report was submitted to the board on October 5th to staff. I believe it was uploaded immediately for public consumption. It is five pages of written text and 2 figures that address all of the water issues, whether it be stormwater, sanitary, aquifer, wellhead. The conclusion in that report is that there is a nominal risk to the town for any type of contamination, which we think is a better deal, again, than many permitted uses that could come in the IG district and operate without having to go through the special use process. So you are getting a third-party opinion that you can hang your hat on, that makes the conclusions, that addresses really a lot of the fear that has been circulating throughout the town.
Mr. Calderon, very brief. I don't think the Apex report was publicly made available.
I'll just clarify.
I'll let the planning staff.
The report was emailed to me past the 5-day deadline on October 7th. And so at that point, I couldn't direct it to the BZA. And if I couldn't direct it to the BZA, I didn't share it with the public either. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, I printed it out and gave it to the board today at the meeting, so that even the board members saw the report for the first time today during this meeting and heard your comments about it. Yes.
Thank you. The 7th was Saturday? So you received it Friday the 6th? Okay. 7th was Saturday. It's my wife's birthday. Can't forget that.
You had a question. I can't remember. What was it?
Safe space for the.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you may or may not have seen, there's a fence that is around the entire property, but also, so those vehicles that we were talking about in question that would be in that area, they're behind a solid fence, the opaque fence we talked about. You can't see that from the street. You can't. It's an opaque fence. Just a few things that I wanted to throw to the demonstrators. I think that's the right word. Remonstrators. I heard something mentioned about gravel and concrete contracts and other contracts. As the developer, okay, we will be selecting who that is, right? With LKQ, of course. But if the remonstrators have companies that they'd like to recommend that have qualifications that would meet what we do for this project, let's look at it. Let's consider it. We're happy to do that.
I think there was a question regarding how big a facility this is and the surface material in the outside storage area. This site is 103 acres. It's 103 gross, 80 after development. The storage area for the vehicles after inside processing will be gravel with an underlay material. Is it fabric?
6 inches of natural stone over a fabric filter, right?
All of that is designed to mitigate any concerns about contaminants from product that's stored outside. So hopefully that addresses that particular question. With respect to infrastructure and utilities available to the site, those are all being, okay.
Yeah, this is all, Chris, you want to talk about it, you can, but yeah, that was a great question. I can't remember who asked that, but because of the designation in that area, what it should become, you know, industrial and commercial, it's happening, right? You have to supply the utilities, so part of this project is bringing the water and the sewer to this area, and so the lines are built and addressed for future development. So the point is, it'll be there, those utilities.
Gas is already there.
And yeah, gas is already there.
I think there was a question, and I think I'll have Chris answer this because I think he testified last month as to the typical traffic pattern on a daily or weekly basis to the facility. Chris, do you mind reiterating that?
Yes, so, well, Chris Brewer, OKQ representative. So daily traffic patterns, I think like I said it last time, so, you know, you're gonna have your employees in the morning. As far as tractor trailers, I know that's a concern with any type of industrial developments. The good news for this is that unlike your typical Amazon facility, these guys are gonna have, call it roughly 5 tractor trailers a day, maybe 2 in the morning and possibly 3 in the evening. In addition to that, you'll have roughly, Randy, correct me if I'm wrong, how many box trucks that would deliver parts?
50.
Yeah, 50 maybe. So, and then obviously you're gonna have your employees coming and going, and then there would obviously be some deliveries as well from UPS, FedEx, whoever that may be. That's your typical traffic pattern.
Thank you. There are some comments that we'll not respond to directly, simply because we can't speak to any personal experience with what's happening up in, Virginia for the last video, but with 2 folks at Blackford County. And the still recycling plant there, we don't have any knowledge of that plant as being comparable to what we're proposing here. We would say the second video that was presented would be similar, which would be exactly what we've said. It's an indoor facility. It's going to look just like any kind of warehouse building that you would expect under IG, which is what the property is zoned for, or your comprehensive plan. And sure, could there have been a puddle in the parking lot? Yeah, don't know how hard it rained, don't know the circumstances, but that happens. We are building a retention pond, clay line, with an appropriate outlet pipe to service all the water stormwater that we are producing, as well as the stormwater that we have to capture up from upstream. So to the extent that those other properties are currently discharging, we have to manage their stormwater as well. Our detention pond will hold it, we'll clean it before it's discharged. And I think that's probably captures the most important questions that we wrote down, and if we missed any, we apologize. We're not trying to be disrespectful for any citizen. If the board has any questions that we didn't address that it may have written down, we're happy to try to answer those at this time. But look, we've got 2 sides, very passionate about what's happening here. We believe based on what we provided to you, that we meet your criteria. More importantly, your professional staff does as well. And that is who you should rely on if you need a tiebreaker. She's written a beautiful report, very detailed. She did a supplemental memo. She's put in conditions. And we just appreciate the opportunity to be able to present tonight and hopefully address whatever carried over from September and what was also presented in question this evening.
There was one question that was asked about on-site testing, having someone there at the facility all the time. Is that something that has been done in any other facilities, or is a possibility here?
I don't think that it's been done all the time, but what?
And Randy, you want to address it, or?
There's never been a need.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, are we talking about with regards to testing for pollution, for stormwater, for?
Right. I'm not sure exactly what she was asking. She's asked about on-site testing.
Yeah. So stormwater is obviously, that is tested for, both by LKQ itself and third parties on selective frequencies, right? The pollution standards, I would talk to the scientists and come up with something reasonable if that was an actual concern. Let's talk about it. Tell me what you're thinking, and let's, see what it says. Groundwater testing is not that hard. I mean, it's, you put in a sample well and you test it once a year. So we can, if again, we're reasonable, we're gonna do what's right. You guys tell us.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the board for either LKQ or anyone else that spoke?
I have another one. You said you're closing down 2 plants to come and consolidate them with this one. How long were they in operation, and why are you closing them down?
As you can imagine, they purchased my facility 25 years ago now, and as you can imagine, I was number 10. And as we take the journey, we're trying to do these prototypes to make the environment better and everything else that we're trying to do better. But in this market, we have, and especially in the East, there's a lot of really small mom and pops that we bought. Good people, this was their retirement program. We purchased them, and then over the years, we've been trying to upgrade. And the one we are closing for sure is Avalon. There's only like 12 employees there, so at that location, it will be completely closed. We would anticipate only 2 or 3 of the people moving from there at this point, and the rest would be coming from the local market. The other facility was going to be a warehouse, and that warehouse is because we have a lease on it, will stay open for a while. But the Avon is too small, does not meet what we do, economically or EPA wise. So, by the way, it's been there for 40-some years. It has had a great record in the state of Indiana. So, you talk about yards being around for a long time. It is one of the older ones, but it's small, and it's an area that we just can't develop in because there's not enough property around it. So that's why we're looking at this location.
Yeah, to expand on that a little bit, so I've worked with LKQ for 15 years, known about them longer than that. They had the 3 people that started this is a Fortune 500 company, by the way, for those that may or may not know, publicly traded. Anyway, they had a vision. They accumulated mass in certain markets, and once they accumulated enough mass, they wanted to rebrand this business. And that's why, again, if I'm in your shoes, I'm asking the same questions. I want to know the fact.
Because if it's a junkyard, you don't want it.
But that's exactly what their visionaries were 24 years ago when they started the company, is to put together projects like this. There'll probably be 12 to 15 across the country when it's all said and done.
Thank you. Sure.
One thing I didn't hear addressed was about the $7.2 million worth of fines. I think most people, when they heard the name LKQ, went out to Google, searched for it, and that's one of the first things that comes up. It is pages and pages worth of fines, and if you total those up, it's quite extreme. So could you address that?
Unfortunately, I'm probably not the guy that knows all about it, but I will tell you that the majority of what you're probably seeing in there, and it's unfortunate because the fines can be easily laid out by the EPA, but most of them were probably missed date reports. In other words, we had a major rainfall and they checked it 3 days later, or there was a report that they should have done. A lot of it is literally paperwork, not necessarily a contamination or anything. The largest one that you'll see, which has nothing to do with our salvage business, but it is with we have a aftermarket parts company called Keystone, and we were selling, I think it was a 3M product or something of that nature that had a recall on it. It was an aerosol spray that not only we were fined, but anybody that was selling the product was fined. Nothing to do with a salvage yard. Okay? So that was a lot of money.
Randy knows more on the fines specifically, but I would tell you that there have been none of the EPA fines in the 6 facilities that are similar to what we're going to build here. The first of which was built about 12 years ago.
Any other questions from the board?
This was mentioned, I may not, I didn't hear it. I know there was a lot of reclaiming the liquids from the cars. I never heard anything about, most all new cars have air conditioning system. Do they reclaim and recycle refrigerant? Just not, or whatever the answer.
The answer is yes, we do. And it's, by the way, we do that because we're able to sell it, and it's part of our total recycling process.
All right. One question. What's your name, please?
Steve Perry. The attorney stated that ATAC, which is they're an environmental engineering firm, which does APAX. Oh, okay, sorry. Anyway, they said that they reviewed the Lapel wellhead protection plan, and Oksana stated earlier that Lapel does not have one. So which one's right?
So, I can answer that. So, Apex requested all the information that we could get from the town of Lapel. I'm not sure who's here, but someone from the town can tell you. So they provided all that information. Citizens, the Lapel well's here, Citizens well's right here next to it. So, I asked multiple times, I did not get what Lapel had, but I did get what Citizens had. And maybe Rob has more information.
There is a plan at the water department, and I copied that originally, but I think the town council has copies of that plan. But it's in a book out there, and we can will have to take it away from it. It's circled, it's actually renewed this after COVID. You guys can hear, it was renewed right after COVID, and it's on file out there, and it was a little smaller than the map that Citizens had, but Citizens got more wells out there as well, so I don't know if that would affect the drawdown from it, but the circle it goes northeast from the site up in toward,
away from the town, but up northeast from the site across the road is where it draws from.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more quick question? Ashley Andrea, I'm a teacher at Lapel. My question is for you guys, that you haven't really touched on. How are you planning on partnering with the schools for internship and vocational opportunities? Because I know that's something that we could use here.
Well, that's actually a great question because we actually bring schools in to watch how a actual recycling process works. All of us talk about recycling, but unfortunately not a lot of people want to do it. And in this situation, it's a really good to actually show young people how you can take something that was going to be scrapped and take it and actually put it back in the environment for good, so it doesn't actually have to be reordered. And number two, one of the things, hello. I think when your time's up, it turns off. Anyway, what's really nice is when we have vocational schools in the area, because it helps them see what their opportunities are. And so, and actually one of the biggest things is, the kids get a lot of recycling about cardboard and about plastic, but the big stuff, this is what they get to understand, and it's really what affects our environment more than some of the other things. So that's the school thing.
Thank you. All right, I think that'll conclude our questions.
I got one last important question I forgot to ask earlier. If I may.
Is the question you asked earlier?
No, it's the question I forgot to ask earlier speaking. This is the LKQ board here. Is there gonna be any EVs installed? And if so, what's the plan for fire suppression on those?
What was the question?
Like how many EVs? And if so, what's the fire suppression?
Like Tesla and stuff.
Electric vehicles?
Currently, they're being all sent to one location because you are correct, the EV batteries do take a little bit of a different handling process. As the journey goes for all of us, your shop, my shop, fire departments, whoever was saying, it's a big challenge, and we're not wanting to take that risk yet, so those are going to one facility.
So there won't be any EVs housed here?
I can't, if they're brought there, they're waiting to go somewhere, but probably, we don't see any. By the way, I don't know how Tesla does it, at least Tesla, they're getting all their cars back. So we really haven't seen that many EVs. It's something that is coming, it is something that's coming, but right now, currently, it's probably 0 to 1%. In the whole market we're dealing with.
I understand, my concern is it only takes one car to cause an environmental catastrophe.
Yeah, and it's no different than if it was sitting in the parking lot out here either. I mean,
Well,
we as a community.
It's not gonna catch 100,000 cars on fire.
Yeah, the point is, all of us really are going to have to get up to speed. Your shop, my shop's up to speed on what's gonna happen with EVs. And it's, talk about unknowns, even the fire departments are struggling with it.
Oh, I know. That's why I wanted to address that.
Thank you.
One question.
No,
It's been that way since the get-go. Shut them down, let LKQ have all the time they want, that's okay.
It's not the case, so.
It is, in my opinion, not entitled.
We're all entitled to one, so. At this point, I would ask, the LKQ representatives if they have seen the staff's recommended, conditions and comments for approval, if it were to be approved, and any other conditions that we've talked about so far, and if you're, willing to meet those conditions.
All the conditions are acceptable, saving, except there was a time of what would be considered unreasonable, I think 30 minutes to crush. That would take, we would need longer than that, but we can determine a time that's acceptable. Again, I think, let's put the location on the site where that's gonna happen. We are absolutely fine with those restrictions.
Just get into semantics.
you accept that we make those commitments, that we want to report it done?
Those that are there say and accept that, the time, yes, and we can,
What time of work?
what time to work? Randy, middle of the day, you want to start in the morning? Obviously, that happens, maybe a 2-day process, I mean, just, you know.
The process is, we would like to keep the yard as full as possible, you know, it makes economic sense. So I would say probably, we're gonna crush probably 2 days out of the month, would probably be what happens.
So 24 days, roughly, plus or minus, right? 2 days a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, and normal business, I mean, 7 to 6, right? And it won't happen that long, but just have the ability to do it during that time.
May I clarify just something for the record?
Sure.
Currently, the noise condition is actually not in the staff report, so that wasn't in the list of conditions that are proposed yet. The noise was more in the memo with the information of how the board could phrase it if it decides to add a condition. So this is just a note for the board that, you know, it's not there, if you'd like to add it, you know, I propose the wording, and then LKQ proposes some other changes, you know.
Yeah, an acceptable noise level should be put on, for sure, I mean, absolutely, and do it. Is lighting in there? Yeah.
Lighting as well.
Yeah.
Take one question.
Do you have a fugitive dust plan associated with the car crushes?
Randy, do you know the answer to that?
I do not know the answer to that.
That's
It's
a Purdue.
required, but we have to.
You guys gotta listen to this.
It's not required, but it does create dust plumes.
Right, but that's something that we could put as a
It could be
condition,
something
so,
important to
yeah.
consider.
So, thank you. So with that, I think the board here needs to discuss all the findings amongst ourselves here. We'll be open discussion. And once we conclude our discussions, then we'll ask for a motion for approval or denial, and we will go from there. So we're gonna have our discussion here. You're all welcome to listen while we discuss, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're all welcome to stick around and do that. So, any questions, concerns that you have, or conditions that you want to consider, or? We've got the conditions from We'll talk as loudly as we can so we can hear what we're saying.
We
Yeah,
want to hear this discussion, they have to, this is still part of it, so because it's.
Keep the noise down.
Oh, so that's the main record, that's the main reason.
Yeah. So this was staff report that Anna prepared, given the last meeting. There were additional requirements that she gave us on the exhibit C.
I think it's pretty critical information whether that wellhead is going to be abandoned, and that's where new wellheads are going. That plays a big part.
The
Location.
Right, but at this point, we don't know where the new wellheads may be located. We don't know if that's going to be abandoned.
We gotta speak so she can hear and make the record, and if this is still a public meeting, we gotta.
Yeah, please keep the noise down out here, please. We're trying, if we can't hear up here, you can't hear out there, we're trying to get.
Yeah, I just think it's very pertinent, the plan for the existing wellhead and where new wellheads will be established. that's this area, we should know that, and we don't.
Right. And I don't know how soon we would know where they're looking at possibly putting new wells. We don't know if they're gonna try to shut that well down. That's something that I think we have to take, like I said, take into consideration that we don't know. And we may not know for some time yet. So.
Even if there's not town water, but we got neighbors out there surrounding that got wells, we could be concerned with things.
Yeah, that is another concern.
Citizens got 3 wells there.
Citizens has 3 wells
They
there.
have not made a statement whatsoever on it.
You know, they've not made any comments that I've heard on as far as, anything to do with this project. I don't know if anyone has addressed citizens' water on that.
Their response is they won't address it till after you've made your decision.
Okay, so we're still pending anything from citizens on that. There is a concern, and it's one that I brought up at the last meeting, was the number of other residents in that area. In the initial report, it was mentioned that there was 1. I've driven around the perimeter of, Highway 38, 13, is that 650 South and Atlantic Road. I used to live just off of Atlantic Road. So I know that area fairly well, but I went out and counted, and just within those perimeters of the roads, there are, I believe, 13 residents, and then there's the one, I included in my count to make it 14. It is directly across to the east on 13. So does not count any residents that are north of 38 or any of the residents that are in Hamilton County. So it is a lot of private wells that could be affected by this, besides just the town or the commercially owned wells. Any other comments from?
Yeah, when it comes to me, I think when I'm going through the finding of facts worksheet, the ones that really stick out to me, number 3, that will not permanently injure other properties in the same district or same vicinity. Submitted with our paperwork, we have letters from multiple different realtors from the area. I'm sorry I had them pulled out earlier, but I kind of got mixed up looking through everything today. Every one of those realtors had signed an affidavit saying that they feel like this would negatively impact property values in the area. All of them saying that, properties that are adjacent to this lot could be negatively impacted, especially the residential areas. So I'd like to, take that into consideration. The other item that really weighs on me is, does this align with the Town of Lapel comprehensive plan? So I went back through and I read through the comprehensive plan, and a lot of these areas, first of all, this area on the comprehensive plan was marked for light industrial, which I know this is general industrial, and that has been rezoned. But when the Town of Lapel was asked about what they would like to see this area used for, there was question 8 on the form that said, what would you like, or what would you support the following land uses? I believe it was north of 400 south. And then there was question 9, what would you support south of 400 south? And then on to question number 10 that said, what would you like to designate for areas along major roads and corridors like State Road 13 and 32? So those are the ones, mainly questions 9 and 10 stick out to me as far as what this area would like to be used for. Out of those responses, question number 9, 54% of people, I'm rounding this all off, sorry, it's not exact, said recreational, 41% said retail, 43 single residence, 34 hospitality, 28 for senior residents, and then 24 for light industrial. So when you look at that, light industrial was one of the lowest on the list, and general industrial was not asked at all. Question number 10, when along major corridors, the light industrial only got 10% of a strong response, and then 41% of people disagreed with light industrial being along the major corridors for State Road 32 and State Road 13. So when we look at the comprehensive plan, I'd like to everyone to consider the feedback that came from the public during those meetings.
Okay, and I do recall a lot of that information from the what's called? The comprehensive plan, yes. When that was done, I believe it was in 2020 or 2021, I was actually on the committee that put that together, helped put it together. So that was an area that was looked at to be either general commercial or light industrial. And over the past few days and quite a bit of today, I've spent a lot of time going over minutes of meetings from the planning commission, from the town council, trying to figure out exactly what they're wanting to do with this property or these areas south of Highway 38. And back in April, it was April of this year, there was a correction made to the map that was put together. It showed one of the areas, I believe it was listed as general commercial. It was off by about a mile on the map. Once that was corrected, this area is still within a light industrial area, but they did make a change to the zoning map for the plan to show that as light industrial for this area. And then planning commission meeting on April 13th. There's an area, it's not this exact area, but it's in this same general area that they changed from rezoning from ag to general commercial. And that was, I think was a good move. And then, and that was passed by the planning commission to make that recommendation to the town council. All of the planning commission that were present voted in favor of rezoning that from ag to general commercial. So that was forwarded on to the town council for their decision on that. The motion was made to rezone the area, and all were in favor of rezoning that to a general, the general commercial area. So that was just earlier this year that it was rezoned to be general commercial. On this would have been the town council meeting on April 26th. There was a ordinance, motion was made to adopt ordinance 3-2023. It was to change the official zone map. It just says certain real estate in the minutes of the meeting. And again, this was to make it general commercial. And again, it was voted on by all the town council in favor of that additional area to be general commercial. At the next town council meeting on the 18th of May, the ordinance again was read and was to change it from ag to general commercial. It was suggested by the new consultant that a better zoning for that area would be general industrial. So it's going from general commercial, or actually went from agriculture to general commercial, and now just another month later, we're rezoning it to, or wanting to rezone it to general industrial. Since that didn't meet what the planning commission had suggested or recommended to the town council to send back to the planning commission to consider changing that to general commercial instead of, or change it to general industrial instead of general commercial. On May 8th, the planning commission met at their regular meeting to discuss changing their recommendation, make it from agricultural to general industrial. And again, it was recommended by the consultants that this was the best zoning change that should be made, best for the town. And it was discussed, I'm going to read all the notes here. Basically, the general commercial zoning district had been made in error. I don't believe that it was myself. The consultant recommended changing the zoning to general industrial. This motion was given a favorable recommendation by the planning commission. Again, that's not this exact property, but it's another property in this same general area. It was recommended to go from agriculture to general industrial, and all were in favor. At the town council meeting, that ordinance was passed, with all in favor of making that area now general industrial. And one of the things that I noted in here was it was passed by all in favor on the first reading, and that the second and third readings of the ordinance it was made decided that it would pass on the first reading. That is something that the town can do. I think there's some areas or some decisions that probably don't. I would recommend, I guess, passing on the first reading. Those second and third readings are there for a reason. Going on, there was a planning commission meeting on, this would have been July 13th. This one is for actually for this particular piece of property or properties. Original request was to change the zoning from agricultural to general industrial. At that meeting, it was proposed, again, that was the motion that was made. And I was at a public hearing. Everyone that spoke at that meeting was against that change except for one individual, and they were in favor of it. There was a motion made to review to hold the review of the application until the next regular meeting. So that was tabled at that meeting on July 13th. So the next meeting was held on there was a town council meeting held on the July 20th. In there, basically, it just was reported to the town council that the planning commission had heard the discussions on the LKQ rezone request, and that it had been put off to the next meeting. At the next planning commission meeting on August 10th, it was discussed further to change it from agriculture to general industrial. After quite a bit of discussion at that meeting, there was finally a motion made to send, the motion was made to send a favorable recommendation to the town council to rezone this area from agricultural to general industrial. On that vote, there were only 6 of the 7 members present at the planning commission meeting. It was a split vote, so it was not passed as a recommendation, but forwarded on to the town council basically as no recommendation. the town council meeting that was held on August 17th. There was the motion made for this ordinance, which is ordinance 6-2023. The motion was made to pass the ordinance, which would change the zoning from agricultural to general industrial, and it was passed with a vote of 3-2. So in a matter of a few months, this area went changed from agricultural to general commercial, and now parts of it are zoned as general industrial. So there's a lot of changing going on in a short amount of time. I don't know how much the town council members looked into the different areas that were being rezoned. I don't know how much the planning commission really went out and looked at things. I know several individuals that are on both of these boards or the councils. I think and would hope that they looked into them, but I'm just not sure that the time was spent really to make sure the right decisions were being made. The one thing that still stands out is, according to one of our criteria here, is that the proposed use will or will not be consistent with the character of the zoning district in which it is located in the town of Lapel comprehensive plan. These zoning changes were made, but the comprehensive plan has not been changed. And so, based on the comprehensive plan, this is still a light industrial or general commercial area and not a general industrial. So in my opinion, this does not meet item 4 to match the Lapel comprehensive plan. So whatever other discussions from the board on this, if you want to have any questions. Any further questions? Cam, Ron? Any Herschel? Jeff? Okay. With no more questions for discussion, I would ask for a motion to either approve or deny this petition. And with that motion, if it is to approve, we need to make sure that we list or state all the conditions that are to go with that. Or if we make a motion to deny, that we also state which of these criteria we see that it does not match. So I would be open for a motion from the board.
The only slight correction I would make is that on all 4, regardless of the findings, regardless if it's approved or denied, you have to make findings on all 4. Yes.
Okay. So, the question then back to you, Jeff, is do we need to make those decisions before we make a motion, or can that be part of the motion?
It must be part of the motion, so people know what they're voting on.
All right, thank you. Okay, so if you make your motion, we need to, make a clarification on each of the 4 finding areas with that motion. So it may take you a minute to figure out your wording for the open meeting motion at this point. does not have to be a motion to either accept or deny. If we need additional information, we can have a motion to continue this on to another meeting. That would be our third option. And the question that Ron had was, do we have enough information concerning what they're gonna do with the existing well, and possible new wells, to be able to make a decision on this? So if we feel that we don't have enough information, or if we need more time to actually put together a recommendation as far as to meet these 4 criteria, we can have a continuance to a later date and come up with a date that we would be meeting to have that meeting.
Next regular meeting is November 20th. Thanksgiving week.
Technically, this week was not our regular meeting. We adjusted it due to fall break for the schools. I would think we could possibly make an adjustment to a week prior, or not.
Whatever date works for the board.
Just so we can try to get
Just need to
as many
announce
here as
the time.
possible. Yes.
So folks that are interested.
Right, yeah.
I'll make the motion, we table it to a future date. We gotta pick that date, right?
You must have to announce the date. You got date, time, location.
How far out does it have to be?
It can be tomorrow.
It can be tomorrow or next week?
Yeah, this board has to provide the petitioner and the remonstrator with an answer within a reasonable period of time. Right.
Next week's fall break, so when does work? We already moved that.
Yeah. And just a quick note, this time we locked down that this venue was available on this date. Anytime you make a motion, we just assume that it's possible, but then I'll just have to double check.
Sure.
And if the location has to change, I have to renotice it in the newspaper and with the mailing, and we have to find another location. So we can make the motion to continue. I will do the double, the checking.
Right.
If that doesn't work, like if the location doesn't work, we'll have to reschedule and I'll have to renotice. So there is a backup plan, but just so that I understand the other part of the work, because unfortunately this location is not available on the monthly, like, regular basis.
Thank you, Roxanne.
Yeah.
Jeff, as a part of that motion, can we make it as a date and a location with a backup location?
Yeah, and then there could be notice posted that the location would not be used to alert people. Yeah, and you probably want to give some lag time, so I show up at 6 o'clock, oh my goodness.
Right.
It's across town.
Right.
So, yeah, but yes, you can.
Okay. So, Cam, what?
I'll make the motion to continue until 2 weeks from today. October 23rd at 6 o'clock here at the station.
I will let you know that I will be out of town on business that day, basically that whole week.
Okay.
So we have to go, we're gonna try to get, I don't know if the next week is available for everyone, I will be back then.
Make a motion, we push it 3 weeks to October 30th at 6 o'clock at the station. And I'd say a backup plan would probably be the Eagles if we have to put a contingency location. The Eagles will hold people.
If we were to do it.
Mr. Singh, did you make that date?
You said October 30th?
30th, yes.
We can work
Can you call them and ask them? See what it says?
I'm not available, but I'll call Mr. K to see if he's available.
Okay.
So Cam has made a motion that we have a continuance to October 30th, 6 o'clock at the same location.
Yeah.
And as a backup contingency, possibly meeting at the Lapel Eagles.
They're not available on Mondays.
You're not available Monday, so it's not available backup. Let's just go with the one.
Yeah, sure. I don't think we do it.
Okay, all right, we do have another place here in town, the Lapel Lodge, that it would be available if need be.
October 30th at 6 o'clock.
Correct, and if we go to that alternative site, do we wanna make it, say, 6:30 or?
6:15, I didn't count about that big yet.
So, Cam, your motion then is?
I make a motion to table decision till Monday, October 30th at 6 o'clock here at the station with the contingency plan of Lapel High School.
That's
The
what I-
lodge, the lodge.
What's the address of the lot?
The lodge.
818 Main Street. 818 Main Street.
Do I have a second on that? Seconded by Ron, Nunlin, Paul?
Jim?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Herschel?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Cam?
Yes.
With that, that would be our next, meeting. We have no other new business. Motion to adjourn.